Hello, everyone. This is a Trip Across, aka Agbe Benipao. I would like to delve a little deeper into the reincarnation trap, how souls are held in the universe. As you know, or may not know, the universe is like a disc, a circular sphere out of in the middle of infinite space. So the universe is finite. And outside of universe, when you exit the universe, that's where source really is. By source, I simply mean the huge column of light that exists. So everything that exists outside of the what we call the universe is source, and source has different layers, different levels. Okay, so we're caught up in the universe, and there are a lot of trickeries, a lot of machinations to keep us enslaved, to never escape. It is real. It is not philosophy. It is not religion. It is not science. It's just what is. Unfortunately, a lot of people, I would say the vast majority of us, don't understand or haven't, are not conscious of the depth of the trickery, the lies, the deception, the distraction. There's the word that was used in my ayahuasca, one of my ayahuasca trips. The level of deception, the level of confusion. It's so deep that you can be given quite a bit of truth and then you're thrown off by 30% as long as you're kept in the game. A lot of us can get caught up with the bits and pieces, or at least maybe 50%, 30%, 60%. That's true after we pass over the afterlife. And then not really question the part that's not true. That's because we have been programmed. Our minds are programmed. Our lights are programmed. Remember, this is a physical thing. What we're perceiving as physical. There's a light inside your physical body. So if I tap the side of my eye, on the other side, I'll see a light. Different people have different colored lights. It depends on their spiritual awareness, spiritual advancement, meaning light advancement within the light, the totality of what exists. So we are being deceived. It's not just our physical it's not just our physical brain or mind that is programmed. We're not just programmed here in the physical the day we're born. We're programmed before we're born. So the program continues over and over again, and you just keep getting hammered with the program over and over again. So every time you pass over, you're tricked. You come back into reincarnation trap, the tunnel of light that everybody should avoid, or the vortex. And you're programmed again. At some point, the programs become so ingrained in our light that we accept it as mostly truth. A part of you always knows the truth. I would like to begin. There are two videos that I would like to play for you to delve into this a little more. But let's begin with something that Jose Taxton. You know that Jose Taxton's a friend. And once in a while, I find his recordings interesting, our communication. So this is synchronicity. So this is what he said about the physical brain being programmed. And then we'll go into the videos, the two videos.
So there's deeper level layers of the brain, the subconscious, the conscious mind, and then different layers of the light in the brain, different layers of the conditioning of the brain. So when you're feeling pain in the brain, your brain is being rewired, hence you can telepathy. um, telekinesis or intuition, sharper intuition, sharper foresight that can help you see into the future, that can help you tap into other realms. I can see different layers of my brain. I can see images like a wave. You can see the layers of the brain, the conditioning. So basically, it's rewiring the brain, deconditioning certain patterns, because it starts with the brain. It starts with the crown chakra.
Okay, just in case you're confused, he was fasting and he was able to tap into the visuals of his consciousness.
So if the crown is corrupted, if the crown has been penetrated, damage, then everything else follows. And this is how things can enter the body, taking control, spiritual possession. Hence, if you do not do what's necessary to cleanse the body, to reclaim your body, you're going to have a very difficult time living in the physical dimension.
Okay, so it's going to be more than the physical dimension. You're going to have a very, very difficult time leaving the universe. You might ascend, but you will never leave unless you take care of most of your problems. And you will be deceived. You will be religious. You will be an atheist. You will be a science person. Whatever it takes for those outside on the other side. I don't care if they are super yogis, Buddha, Christ. It's all a trap. It's all a trap. And we're programmed. Okay, so I feel like my source is also guiding me here. And I've had evidence. But I'm paying very close attention to what's happening with me, and I've been paying attention, especially the last since I would say about February of 2021, and I can say that things that I've perceived are helping me now, plus past life stuff and this life as well, putting all the pieces together. It's about putting the pieces together. Sometimes you put things on the back burner and then you bring it together later. So in this video, I would say this. When you go to the other side, or when you are in a state of relaxation, when you're relaxed enough, you should be able to understand the language of everything, including the language of the heater, the language of trees, and what the tree is trying to say, what the expression of the tree through sound. You should be able to understand any quote unquote extraterrestrial language that exists in the entirety of the universe, because it's an energy match. Understanding language is an energy match. When it happened with me at with the heater one night when I was detoxing my mind using my PART2, once my body reached a calm state, the heater was making noise, and I've spoken about this before, but I understood what the heater was saying. Later I forgot, but I understood what the heater was saying. So everything has consciousness. Certain things are just, how you feel these things, how you express the consciousness is another story. So if you go to the other side, when you pass over and you meet this person, Buddha, or whoever it may be, I don't care what religion it is, or what master it is, they're all deceivers, every one of them. If they're part of the good ones, if they are really good, they'll let you know that, you can pretty much, they'll help you move up. They'll help you get out of the universe. They wouldn't tell you that you have to follow Buddha, Christ, or anything to make it, because that's all part of the programming. And if you can't understand an extraterrestrial language when you passed on, know that you've been programmed. Let's take a look at the first video. Let me make sure that I am presenting. Yes, I am. Let's play it.
And now, from beyond our dimension.
Okay, to give credit where credit is due, this podcast is by Jeff Mara. That's JEFFMARA podcast. I'm going to play bits and pieces of the 2 videos he made.
Is the Jeff Mora podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Chris Bergman. Chris had a near-death experience where he encountered a friend who had passed, and today we're going to learn about it. Chris, thank you so much for joining me, and welcome.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Let's start talking about your NDE. What happened?
Sure, I'll give you the run-up to it as to why I ended up in hospital twice. First, it was around Valentine's Day. I was getting ready to go out for dinner with my wife, and I wasn't feeling it. I was feeling kind of crappy, and went out for dinner. It was supposed to be a great dinner, and just couldn't eat anything. Didn't know what.
Okay, so let's skip ahead to 7 minutes and about 50 seconds where 7 minutes. That's 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Let's go. Not 17 minutes. 7 minutes. See. So basically, this. Okay, let's have you hear it, and then I'll give you my 50 cents on it. Whatever, 2 cents on it.
So freaking relaxed, totally accepting of anything they wanted to do. I was just totally at peace with everything.
Okay, so this is when he is on the other side at the near-death experience. He was at peace with everything.
And from then on, it was the best experience in hospital. They moved me up to a different room. The room I moved into was super cool, like, I mean, physically cool. It was nice and quiet. And just everything was so much easier to deal with. I don't know if it's because of the NDE or it was because of the previous experience being so bad. I could have stayed there for months. I wouldn't have minded. Even though I was on no food, no water for 4 days, I, attached to a suction tube to the wall, up my nose, and had to get the nurse in if I wanted to move. Had the IVs, hand was blowing up because the IVs had created a blood clot in my hand, my hand and my arm. No issues. I was just like, yeah, this is all good.
That's not what I want.
It was one of the funniest things. There was an old lady in the room with me, and she was profoundly deaf. She couldn't hear anything, but somebody had given her this little radio.
Okay, all right. I'm going to move forward a little bit.
The way I treat people, the way I talk to people, far more open with everybody. It's just, truly like.
Okay, I had written down 7 minutes, 54 seconds, but I'm not finding what I mean. Move to 13 minutes to see if it's there. 13 minutes. Start here.
Knowingness, anyways.
There we go. Okay, all right. So Jeff just asked. So he didn't know. You could watch the entire video yourself. Let's go back a little bit. Basically, the interview, the person Jeff is interviewing couldn't understand the language of, is it the extraterrestrial he was talking to? I'm trying to remember who he was talking to. But it was definitely a being on the other side, speaking a different language. Let's see.
And that's why I went to look at him. I was going to ask him, what are you trying to tell me?
Usually people are speaking to...
All right, just a little bit.
Just tell me it's...
Let's go back a little bit.
What's the one? Aramaic. They're convinced it was Aramaic that was being spoken to me. I don't remember the words. I don't remember the sound structure of it. I just remember thinking, what are you trying to tell me? And that's why I went to look at him. I was going to ask him, what are you trying to tell me?
Usually people are speaking to each other.
Okay, so I don't remember if it was a guide or an ET, but it doesn't really matter. He should have been able to understand whatever language it is, unless he was programmed in a previous life or in this life, or they made sure, the reincarnation trap, the tunnel made sure that he didn't remember. It doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, some people do remember being able to understand everything ETs are saying, everything that a guide is saying, because of love, because they're holding on to certain elements of their love. So not everything can be eradicated. It's not, you can't say that, well, he doesn't remember, nobody remembers anything. No, there are degrees of remembering. It depends on how much light you bring to the table. But the fact that he doesn't remember at all means he's been programmed. And Jeff is making a statement about that.
Kind of tell me.
Listen to what Jeff says.
I look at him. I was going to ask him, what are you trying to tell me?
Usually people are speaking to each other telepathically. And I think that this is the first time that anybody ever told me that they didn't understand the language the person was speaking to them. Because usually it's kind of a knowingness anyways.
Yeah, no, it felt familiar, but still I had.
He is programmed. Yeah, he is definitely programmed. We all have things in our system, whether we want to admit it or not. The best way to get around this is to remember that we are programmed, we are triggered. It's like when I'm going to watch my face. What I normally do is I'll turn my eye to the area that I'm feeling pain. So if I'm feeling pain in my lower back, I'm going to put myself in my visuals in my lower back to see and to see what's happening. So what I'm actually doing is focusing my light on that spot to understand. I do it calmly. What happened this week, it was just yesterday actually, I was driving and I was triggered. So I stopped to shine light on my heart. It's like focus my visuals, my inner visuals, my eyes, my inner eyes, in my heart area. And I caught the parasite or the dark light. Well, I just basically caught the programming in my heart. So it's not just the physical brain or the mind; it's the entire body. When you get a detox, you gotta do your entire body. I think there are some. I'm told there are some, or I've seen and read. There are some detox you could do for your physical body as well. So it's not just the medicine. I'll have to do more research on that. But the body remembers everything. I mean, ever wonder why when landlines, they still do exist in offices, telephones, fixed telephones, not cell phones, or even cell phones, you go to type a phone number and you don't quite remember, but as soon as you put your finger on it, you remember? Well, because everything is a lie. Your fingers have memory. Your back has memory. My whole entire back actually remembered millions and millions of years after I started my chewing diet, swallowing only the liquids. I spent 9 months, the first time I started, 9 months with the chewing diet. And a day or two after I stopped, that was when the information came pouring out through like my back and my body, mostly my back. So your physical body has memory as well. Of course, since I had so much success and the parasite fought back harder in my body, I decided a month later, I had to go back on a diet. And I want to say, when did I start? I don't remember. Anyway, this is the 5th year that I'm doing this. I believe it's a 5th year. If you count 1 year, 3 years, 4 years. This is the beginning of the 5th year. If you count, I mean, of course, if you say you stop for a month, and so that doesn't really count. But if I'm starting from the 9 months, then so right now I'm trying to put the pieces together. And one of the things, the pieces to me going back, leaving the universe, and one of the things that I have to stress is if you don't understand extraterrestrial language, especially when you're in light form, when you're out of body, there's something in your system that's blocking you. You have to check that. Okay, so this video, we're going to, let me stop presenting it. So he pretty much answered that question for us. So we're going to jump from this video to the next video to explore consciousness a little deeper and the programming that goes on beyond the physical to keep us trapped in the reincarnation, whatever, tunnel or simulation or whatever you want to call it. Only love surpasses all barriers. Love is simply just keep improving self-care. It's not complicated. It's not perfection. Okay. People who remember more are actually trying to take better care of themselves by not lying, by overcoming the programs, by trying to be neutral. Am I being triggered here? Like I asked myself the other day, and the minute I shined that light on my heart area, I felt the subtlety of the triggering. And I was like, okay, so I have to be more careful of what I'm feeling, what I take ownership of, to make sure to tell myself this is not me totally, for the most part. So let's do the next video.
And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the Jeff Mora podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Lori Spagna. Lori is a best-selling author, ascension guide, light worker, and more, who had a near-death experience where she met her loved ones, and today we're going to learn about it.
Every time you hear best-selling author, you should be suspicious because the system does not allow best-selling authors to tell the truth. Unless what he or she is writing about is within the paradoxes of the enslavement of the entire universe. So the person is going to religious belief system, talking about religion, science in a limited way, that is okay. That person can become a bestseller. But the minute that person goes beyond all that, that person will never make it to a best-selling status.
Lori, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Jeff. I'm so happy to be here. Looking forward to get to our time together.
Me too. All right, so if you don't mind, let's start right on the day your NDE happened and go from there.
Well, let me say that what inspired that NDE was that the day before, my most beloved animal companion, whose name was Kenya, she had transitioned. And at the time I was living in Maui, and I was working or going to a weekly group every Thursday night where we would practice energy work. And I would call him, he was a master, the master teacher that I was working with had already had 7 NDEs of his own, one of which was a documented case of waking up in a morgue banging on a grocery store, a morgue freezer. So anyway, when I came to the group, my weekly group, energy group, where we would work with energy, I said to the group, and they kind of knew because I would bring my dog Kenya's picture to the group every week so that they could do energy work on her to help her because she was physically ill for quite a while leading up to her death. And I was so distraught. And I'm devastated by her death. And I was in so much pain. So I went to the group and I asked my master teacher, like, can you please just please help me to know where she was at. I was in so much like emotional grief. I can even kind of recall it and remember it, and in the emotionality of it. And so he said, all right, I'm gonna help you know where she is. Now, this man who had lived in the Kunlun Mountains for most of his life had already learned how to actively work to, and I don't know how to do this myself, but he knew how to take the essence of my consciousness and help it to basically help me to remain conscious and let the physical world basically become nothing but essence, the essence of all that is. So
okay, all right. So if you want to watch this, the title is Her Dog Told Her to Go Back During Her Near-Death Experience by Jeff Mara, M-A-R-A podcast. The reason why I chose the second video, this is a video that actually prompted me to do an entire video on this exposure, to go deeper into exposure of how we're trapped, but the ascended masters, so-called yogis, Christ, Buddha, and so forth. Again, my clear audio kicked in. I did a 48-hour chewing of very fermented, nothing but fermented cashew, detox ahead of time. I don't do cashew like I used to anymore. And I could tell this part of the story is quite true. And the part that I want to talk about that is quite true is what her dog told her. And why animals are so important, why animals are also sentient beings, and how she was programmed. So I will type that into how she was programmed, and for you to consider that this lady, when she said that she has a group on the other side, extraterrestrials from other worlds, so-called very advanced, they're playing us, hoping that all of us are dumb enough or obedient enough to keep accepting their lies. Not here. The bonus rounds have begun, people. Extraterrestrials, I don't care what part of the universe you are, you will be exposed. And if you come at me like you did this several months ago, be ready to get your ass kicked. So we're going to go to 25 minutes. About 25 minutes where she talks a bit more about her dog.
They are not any different from us in terms of their conscious awareness. What is very different, aside from the fact that, other than the great apes, the apes and the monkeys, they don't have the.
Okay. So she said they. Let's just go back a little bit for you to know who the they are. So the they are animals. Okay. So animals, what we consider here in the physical animals.
You need to go back.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, all animals on Earth are sentient.
Wait, when did she say mommy? Let's go back a little bit.
Awakening process that's starting on Earth.
From time to time, people.
No. I got to go back a little bit because this is interesting.
Off, which you never really turn it on or turn it off, but what you do, there's a way to sort of not have to be so, open in a sense. So, but those first 2 years after that, really hard. Yes, I had to navigate that, and nobody could understand it, and I didn't know how to communicate it. And even if I did,
she's talking about her training with the person who helped her with her essence.
I mean, I was starting a business. I thought I was going to be.
All right, let's just get to the dog.
Yes, it was really, really hard at first. And, people are going through this now. maybe not as accelerated, but more and more people are starting to wake up to their empathic gifts, their sensitivities, their psychic gifts. We're all becoming, this is happening on Earth right now. So I just feel like I went through it like ahead of a lot
a little
of
more
people. We
ahead.
don't have the fingers and the hands to, well, let me just say our animals.
Okay, here we are. It's right here.
Awakening process that's starting on Earth.
From time to time, people will write to me and ask me to ask the guests about animals. And so this takes it all to a next level, because not only did you communicate with your dog, but your dog was the one telling you you need to go back.
Yeah. Well, let me just say our animals, all animals on Earth are sentient beings, 100%. They are conscious, they are aware, they have emotionality, they have will and desire. They are not any different from us in terms of their conscious awareness. What is very different, aside from the fact that, other than the great apes, the apes and the monkeys, they don't have the fingers and the hands to create the way we do. Their brains work very differently because we're predominantly left-brained. So we analyze, we think, we use logic, we're skeptics, we figure things out. The way our brains work is information comes into the left brain, the right brain has to become aware of it, the left brain has to process it, then eventually the two brains kind of meet. I get it. Right brain, animals don't have to do that, they're primarily right brain, which means they're just aware. If you hurt an animal, they don't have to think about it. They just know. If there's stress in their environment, they don't have to analyze it or figure it out. They just know. They just immediately identify it. It's kind of like right now in your brain, there's a place called Africa, but you're not thinking about it. You just know. You just know. You don't even have to think about it. That's how their brains work with everything. So they have an incredible amount of awareness. Now, also, because they're not trying to pay the rent, and they're not trying to get along with their mother-in-law, and they're not trying to, figure out if they're going to get COVID or not. Like, these things are not in their requirement of living. They don't have to fill up the car with gas. Because of that, they spend most of their time in a theta brainwave. So their brainwave state, for the most part, or alpha at least, depending on the frequency of the human that they live with, because they are totally environmental, just like we are. We know environment completely affects us. The environment of what we listen to, watch, see, hear, feel, physical environment, so important. So same with animals, but they're mostly in either a theta or an alpha brainwave.
Okay, so I'll say here that I'll just add that some of you might have seen people talking about animals have no souls. They're just part of the matrix. Hint, hint, quartz crystal. Right? So this is complete opposite of what quartz crystal is saying. When I came out and saying that she's completely lying, well, again, I was prepared. I came with examples of past examples of me having friends who were, at least one friend who was an animal in this life, and friends in other lifetimes. And I'll tell you this, if you think that we're more special than animals, we're just different. We're not more special, and we don't feel pain more than they do. I'm not trying to be soft. I'm just saying what is. And when I remember some of the things that at least one of the things that I went through this summer related to some of the things that happened with the betrayal that I will talk about in book 5, I'll tell you this. Animals can take any form, including human form. I was hoping to get to the part where she talked about the room, but apparently the room where her extraterrestrial group I asked her to go, but she turned down. I'll just talk about it, and I'll talk about it, and then I'll see if I can find it. If I can't find it, then at least I've talked about it, and then you can go back and see if you want to watch the whole thing. Again, the name of the broadcast is Her Dog Told Her to Go Back During Her Near-Death Experience. One of the things that I found interesting in this interview also was the fact that she said her dog, when she went to the other side, her dog told her, referred to her as mommy. Mommy, I'm fine. I was like, and I was in a state of, detox. So I felt that deeply. An animal calling the woman mommy. So it just tells you, gives you a clue to the nature of existence, the nature of consciousness overall. So basically, if you want to think about it another way, a student once said, one of my students at the high school level said, so what you're saying is God is eating God. So God is eating himself. Interesting. So basically, the lady is part of an extraterrestrial group. I don't remember what group she said. And at one point, the group asked her, do you want to see where we keep our children? That's what one of the ETs, one of her guide said, you want to see where we keep our children? And she said no. She didn't want to see it. Her children. She's one of the children. Come on. Watch the broadcast carefully. Okay. And why was she afraid? Why didn't you want to see the room? Well, they put an implant in her. They put some energetic, not physical, implant in her. And this is where I'm trying to make the connection for you. Okay, I'm trying to have you make the connection. Well, not make the connection for you, but have you make the connection. How is it that she was so upset? Okay, you can think of reasons why she could be upset. But if the beings that are putting that energy in her, if that energy is so pure, then why couldn't they have just related it without an implant? I found that hard to believe that they can't just communicate with her and open up her frequency a little bit where she could retain the information, but they chose to put an implant in her. That to me was very suspicious. So one thing for sure, whether you believe these particular stories completely or partially, these Ascended Masters, I would say at least the vast majority of them in the entirety of the universe are here to keep up the grand game, the grand matrix, the grand tunnel of light, whatever you want to call it, this simulation, I don't care. But the deception is real. Take it from someone who is leaving the universe after this lifetime. Be careful to put your obedience into these people, into these beings out there, okay? Because they will deceive you. They will present you with like so much love and then squeeze something in an implant. You don't need a savior. The savior mentality is what holds you back. You want to be saved? If I can understand some people there are people who are helping, yes, but that's not the same thing as like worship me. Okay. I will address an issue here before looking for the section of the video. Some people are concerned about what advice to offer others if they tell them not to enter the tunnel of light or the vortex. What should they do? I would say trust your higher self. You don't have to do anything. Your higher self would just like, you see your higher self taking a path, just follow it. If you put yourself in a driver's seat, like, oh, I'm so excited by the tunnel, just turn away from the tunnel. Your source will be communicating with you. It's not difficult. it'll be automatic. But if you're so programmed, then you'll go with the tunnel. You'll go with the vortex. So now let me see if I can find the section where she talks about the implants.
Right now, humans are just beginning to develop brain matter, wisdom to become animals, because our perception is that we want to somehow progress.
Okay, so animals don't want to become humans, mostly. So that's what she's saying. But I know beings who were animals who are preparing to become humans.
Love. And all of those frequencies, love, bliss, joy, our mainstream awareness. Not absolutely, but those are the kinds of, I'm awake, I'm lucid, and I would look up at the sky, these beings who were observing me, and I had free reign to move about this ship to a limited degree, because I could walk in, I could say I want to see, like I didn't talk the same way. I had a telepathic ability to just think a thought and it was heard by everybody. So I wanted to see what was outside the room. I was able to move about to some degree on the ship. I could see one room had all cameras. There was someone in there who identified himself. He was a male, beautiful male, identified himself as what we would call Palladian. And by the way, I had to do a lot of regression on this too, but I definitely, a lot of it was, I'll explain more. So then I was able to move into another room. I went into this huge, like, stadium-like room.
Okay, this is a room
where there was a woman who sort of, in a sense, was like standing in front of the stadium, and she said, "Do you want to go in there?"
There we go.
And I was like, "No, what's in there?"
Children.
And she was like, "That's where we keep all of our children. All of our children are in there. Do you want to go?" She asked me, "Do you want to go in?" I said, "No." So anyway, I was able to move about.
You keep all of your children in one room. She's making a face as she speaks.
And I was able to interact with them. I remember she asked if she could put something in me. They did, I was a little bit altered in that place. She did do what we call an implant in my wrist. Didn't like that at all the next day. I was very angry. But in any case, when I wanted to go back, I said, I want to go back. But there was a period of time, even after that, I'm jumping around here. When I said I wanted to go back, I was immediately back in my physical form, like in my physical home. Like I had complete awareness of what happened. And I was in like a state of shock. I couldn't process it. I knew it happened. I was shocked. But for a long period of time, in that state of shock, and for many, many days, maybe even more than a couple weeks, I was having what I call downloads. And a lot of that was like what I would call codes and symbols and messages being almost like downloaded into my brain or into my consciousness. But the next day when I was like out of it and I was like walking about more, I remember being like enraged, furious, especially about the implant. I remember like screaming like in my car, like, what am I going to do about this? And when I calmed down, I remember for a long period of time, like asking, what is all of this? Like, why did this happen to me? What was this all about? And I would always be told, and my angels would come in too, you'll know when the time comes.
Clean your driveway.
Excuse me, some of these ads just pop up. It'll be done in a second.
You'll know.
So do
I get it.
Do you still have the implant in your wrist?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I had that removed. Like, I know I had it removed, but it wasn't a physical, like, cut your arm open, take it out.
So the question that I have is, you put an implant in somebody, so it puts information in a person's system, and then you remove it. I can think of a better way to have the person remember certain things. Just convey the information to the person, mind to mind. Unless the tunnel itself, her group, the Pleiadians, know that they have no choice within the grand game, but that she has to go through the tunnel. And when she goes through the tunnel, there's going to be some problems remembering certain things. Since she's part of the Pleiadians, that is a possibility. So they wanted to get the information. They didn't want the information erased. I'm just guessing here. So they put the implant in her. But even then, I still don't trust what she's saying. I'm going to go with my initial intuition here that something is off with that implant. Something is off. And what I was getting when I watched this video for the first time is that the Pleiadians have their own agendas. Their group had their own agendas. And they help their own group, themselves within their group. But it also seems like they also are constrained by the overall game. So it could be a multiple of things. One thing for sure, whether you believe the story or not, there's something weird going on here, something off going on here. So that is all that I have to say. That is all for this video. I wanted to do it before I go to bed because I think I've been, the longer I postpone making some of these videos, you just have to, force time into your schedule to get certain things done. Otherwise, you just won't. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. This is a Triple Cross, aka Agbe Ben Ipao. Have a good night. Source consciousness, source speed. Good luck on your journey back to source consciousness.